My hot take is that digital technology is really powerful. It can help us shape a really sustainable world. We as product managers should take a really active part in that, and we should take responsibility to make it happen. Because long term, your product is going to have an impact on the environment, on people who are using it. Often, product managers, they are concerned about the classic triangle of tech, users, and business. Try to add a fourth angle in here. So it is an important factor, and not considering it is a risk.
Hello and welcome to another episode of One Night in Product Hot Takes Edition, where I speak to one person about one thing, get straight to the point, and find out what's on their mind. Now, I'm taking a bit of a break from new hot takes at the moment, but you can still head over to onenightinproduct.com to find all of my old hot takes, as well as longer interviews with thought leaders and practitioners, and links to the podcast on your favourite podcast app and YouTube, where you can like, share, subscribe, leave a comment or review, and let me know what you think. All right, so in front of me, I can see, I'm going to hazard a guess and say it's a bedroom with some boxes and a hint of a wooden door, but a person in front of it as well, who's sitting there patiently smiling at me. So I'm going to throw straight over to you and ask you what your name is, where it is you're based, what you do, and most importantly, what's your hot take?
Hey, really nice to be here. Thank you so much, Jason, for the small intro. I'm Valeria. I'm product manager at Treeapp, and I'm based in London. At Treeapp, I've been for more than 3 years. I've grown from product intern to product manager now, and I'm overseeing all of our products. And my hot take is that I think that digital technology is really powerful. It can help us shape a really sustainable world. But we as product managers should take a really active part in that, and we should take responsibility to make it happen.
Okay, but these days, of course, we don't need any product managers anymore, because that's what I've heard when I look at the internet. It's all about AI. So isn't AI going to fix all this stuff for us? Or do you think that people still have a role to play in this?
I think you also, I heard you talk about that, that AI isn't going to replace product managers. And I do agree with that, because I still feel like, in our job, there is still a lot of human touch that needs to be there, a lot of communication, a lot of aligning people, a lot of, creative work, a lot of just, basic things that the product manager does, like strategy, that AI can potentially do right now on a very low and basic level, but not, of course, as well as a real product manager. So I do think that, if AI is going to come into product management, it's going to be like a tool rather than a complete replacement of product managers as a whole. And I do use AI in my role, right now. I do use it quite a lot, actually, for lots of different tasks, but I'm always there as a human, and it's not going to replace me anytime soon, I think, at least. But let's see what happens in 5 years.
Yeah, I'll put a reminder in my calendar to check. But, that was just kind of a bit of a cheeky aside. But the point is, of course, that you're talking about technology, and technology itself can mean a lot of different things. And arguably things like AI are negative to environment and kind of the sustainable future because, of course, the energy concerns and stuff like that. But when you're talking about then the types of technology that you think kind of drive that future, what types of things are you specifically thinking? Like any particular types of technology, any types of initiatives that people should be trying to work on?
Yeah, for sure. So I think when we speak about AI as well, it is considered right now to be a big kind of environmental contributor, right? In terms of the energy it uses and also the data centers that are used to serve this AI. They consume a lot of water for cooling and lots of resources overall. It is a problem for sure. However, I do think that we are moving in the right direction with our energy system overall. So, introducing renewables into the mix, renewables are growing at a very high pace nowadays and becoming more and more accessible, more and more widespread. It's no longer a novelty of some sort. It's more of a kind of mainstream, at least, like, for example, in Europe nowadays. So we are moving in the right direction. We are going towards a bit of a greener future. Renewables have become affordable, so that means that developing countries can also install them quite easily, and it's it's a cheaper option for them right now. So it's easier to do that rather than adhere to the kind of old energy systems where you have fossil fuels in the mix. So I do still think that with AI, we say that it's a environmental threat, kind of. But it all depends on the underlying infrastructure and how we organize that infrastructure, which resources we use, how do we use them, what energy we consume, what is the infrastructure in place to support these tools like AI. And if built right, it can be sustainable overall. So I do think also that AI can definitely have an application in sustainability for sure. Even things like, just to give an example, like analyzing how a supermarket, what food they have in stock and reducing food waste, predicting which food will be consumed, which they will have to throw away, and then updating the purchase of that food to the supermarket to then be able to reduce food waste as much as they can. An example like this, AI can do it, not, I would say, easily, but like it's a solvable problem for AI to do. And some companies already are doing this. A lot of things like in the energy space, balancing the grid to introduce renewables at the time when they have a lot of energy, trying to balance supply and demand. AI handles this really well. So it's about how we use this tool and this technology in the sustainability space. And if done right, this can become a really great tool to advance us in the sustainable world. What other things I think might be useful in terms of technology is just probably, big data was kind of a buzzword a few years ago, but it's still there, right? Still companies are like handling lots of data, and this can be used as well. This data analysis can be used, of course, to, optimize things, to just reduce energy consumption, reduce waste, just make systems more sustainable. So, yeah. And another thing is just the usual, mobile apps, web apps, just these technologies that have been around for some time now. Just the basic things and the types of accessing information online. Still, they are there. They influence consumer behaviors in a lot of ways. For example, like, I don't know, mobile apps, they can stimulate overconsumption, for example, sometimes, or they can serve like a greener, sustainable goal that would be a bit better for the planet. So these technologies, they stay with us. They are not going anywhere as far as I understand, and they can definitely be used to serve a better goal.
But you say that product managers need to take more of a role in that,
I think
which
so.
means that you probably think that they're not taking or playing their part right now. Like they could be doing more, because otherwise they wouldn't need to, put more into it. So what do you think is stopping them? Like, is it the fact that they're being asked to work on something else? Is it the fact that these days, what with the political movement these days, that no one cares about that anymore? Like, what do you think's holding people back and stopping them making more of a contribution?
Yeah, I think it's often other priorities that come into play. For example, if you're a product manager, you're usually like tight on resources. You already have like a small team, really small time constraints, money constraints, all of this thing. And behind the, product goals that you want to achieve with your product, you sometimes fail to see the bigger picture and think about other things, other risks, or other goals that you might have with your product, other impacts of your product on the environment, on the society. But this seems to be short-term thinking, in my opinion, because long-term, your product is going to have an impact on the environment, on people who are using it, on, of course, your like business and stakeholders, but that's obvious. So often product managers, they are concerned about the triangle, the classic triangle of tech, users, and business. That's kind of their job, to find the intersection between the three and make sure the product serves the needs and like satisfies the needs of all of these sides. However, if we try to add a fourth like angle in here, or a fourth corner, that wouldn't be a triangle anymore, but yeah, maybe like square, maybe like a bit of a pyramid, but
A tesseract or something, I don't know, some kind
something
of
like that.
four-dimensional shape.
Yeah, why not? Because I think that sustainability affects all the other sides ultimately in long term, right? So it does affect how the world that we live in right now. It affects the conditions your users live in. It will affect the business landscape moving forward. So it is an important factor, and not considering it is a risk that you take long term.
Kind of reminds me of some of the things that people like Marty Kagan have been talking about when I've had him on before, where he talks about like obviously the different types of risk that you have in a product. You have like the feasibility risk, the viability risk, the usability risk. And he also talks about the ethical risk as well. That then starts to, you could sit there and say, well, actually this kind of sustainability, I don't know, drive or requirement is part of ethics in general, because of course, when you talk about ethics, it could be about a bunch of different things. It could be about user ethics and sort of privacy and safety and things like that. So do you see this as part of the ethical debate, that anyone that makes any kind of decision about a product build should be considering ethics, and as part of ethics, sustainability as part of their planning process? Or do you think that this sustainability thing is almost like an additional risk that goes on top of the product planning?
It's an interesting point of view. I think that sustainability can be part of ethics if we speak about how people perceive sustainability, that sometimes sustainability becomes part of their values and therefore it falls under the ethics category. But I also think that sometimes sustainability is more practical. So it is less about moral aspects of how a person perceives it, and more like about just the pure practicality of how the world works. The fact that, resources are limited. And so, for example, we need to use them efficiently. Or the fact that we have more sustainable choices that are a bit more affordable sometimes. Why not just use them? So for me, it is kind of separate, I think. I see sustainability as encompassing a bit of ethics, for sure, like for the people who care about sustainability, who are deeply concerned about the state of the environment. But it's also sometimes just practical.
So what then should product managers be specifically kind of bringing into focus when they're starting to try to make sustainable decisions? I mean, I know you've touched on a few of these things as part of the narrative, but like specifically, like if I'm a PM and I'm trying to work out what to build, start to kind of call out my risks and start to plan out what my slices look like, what specific things should I start to think about? Who should I bring in? What types of research should I do? Like, what does that look like on a practical level?
Yeah, I think it would be, of course, different based on what exactly you're working on, right? The product, the type of the business that you work in. So there's no like single universal answer. But what I would probably do as a broad kind of example, I would maybe start with just assessing the long-term impact of your product overall. Like saying that, okay, I don't look at short-term strategy or short-term goals at the moment. I'm looking at kind of what happens in 5 years. How is it going to affect users? How is it going to affect the planet? What kind of resources we're consuming? What we are producing or selling to the people, and seeing how this kind of accumulates and evolves in the course of several years, for example. And then seeing, okay, what can I maybe do about it? Maybe it's the job of the sustainability team in your company to actually do something about it. And,
like they exist in most companies.
Yeah, well, if they exist in some companies. If they don't exist, then maybe it's up to you then to bring up this question, right? So, just trying to assess this impact first, seeing if decisions that you make right now affect this long-term impact in any way. They probably do. And you probably know how they affect it if you look closer. So doing that, maybe speaking to your team as well. I know that sometimes we work on products that are not as sustainable, and but most people as individuals, they are worried about long-term impact of the work that they're doing. And if you speak to people personally, maybe you'll find some allies as well. Like maybe if you speak to your team, you'll understand that, oh, actually, I'm not the only one concerned about this, and maybe we can do something together about that. And also maybe thinking about kind of small wins that you can take here, even if they're not, very small, or maybe they're small, but just looking at, for example, how the design of your product affects the sustainability of your product. I know there's a guy on LinkedIn, his name is Tom Greenwood, and he's written a book about sustainable web design. Lots of insights about how to make your website sustainable, like how to make it consume less energy, how to make it more efficient, how to make it run faster on people's devices, stuff like that. Really basic stuff sometimes, right? But things like this, when accumulating over time, when your product is used thousands, millions of times, are making a big difference. So thinking about these small changes you can make right now to then have a big impact in the future is really helpful. And of course, sometimes it can be hard for product managers to, make the case for sustainability without potentially leadership approval or leadership buy-in. So this can be an obstacle, but at least raising this point, at least, making people aware that you care about that, and maybe they'll care about it too. Who knows? If you bring it up, what's the worst that can happen? Like nothing will change. And if you don't bring it up, that nothing will change anyway. So, but if you do bring it up, then maybe something will change. And so working in this direction really slowly, I think might help.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking of some tiresome sort of tech bro founders of companies that might be sitting there, and the worst that would happen is that they would start actually judging you poorly and sort of calling you some kind of woke liberal whatever because they don't believe in any of this stuff. And I guess that's a problem. I kind of touched on the political thing earlier as well. This idea that the winds seem to be changing, certainly in some quarters, like this idea that, oh yeah, we don't need to worry about that anymore. And it kind of then makes me think that even sort of beyond that, you've got a certain sort of person or certain sort of leader within an organization who'll be like, oh yeah, we'll fix that one day. Like, we don't need to fix that now. We don't need to design it in up front. It's the same as what they have with tech debt or accessibility or all the other things that people say should be kind of given sort of equal footing at the beginning. But they don't do any of those things because, they just want to make money now. They want to get scale now. They want to do all of the things now. They say they're going to come back and fix it later, but they don't because they go on and do something else instead. There's always some other priority instead. So I guess there's a question there, and I don't know if you've seen something. I mean, you're obviously working in a sustainable space anyway, but like if you've seen in other places ways to kind of try and keep it on the agenda, even if it doesn't get into the MVP.
Yeah, that's a tough one, definitely. What can I say? I think first thing that might help is reframing. So highlighting the practical benefits to what you're saying to the company rather than just saying, oh, it's for the sake of the planet, this kind of broad sentence wouldn't really appeal to these, tech pros that you mentioned that care about the practicalities and the money and all the stuff. So they apparently wouldn't see the value. But as a product manager, I guess your job is to speak their language as well. Try to find an approach to these people and try to see what they really care about. And if you can reframe what you want to do in a way that appeals to these people, say, you cut your costs or you save some resources or whatever else, right? There is some additional benefits to what you're saying, probably, that you will then highlight to these people, and then they would be like, oh, wow, this is actually what we want rather than what you want. So, reframing, I think, might be good. And then also reiteration sometimes, just not forgetting about stuff yourself, might help. If, you bring it up like 5 times, people are going to notice you.
Well, there's that whole thing about, you have to repeat it until you're bored of hearing it. And then by the time you're bored, then other people might start listening. So I guess you could make the same argument about a lot of things. But it also, like, touching on that point about making changes or improvements, it kind of feels like there's a sliding scale potentially of like, okay, yeah, well, it's bad all the way up to like it's the best. Is there actually to your knowledge, like a kind of an official sustainability scale that product people can use to kind of rank their products against, or is it more of a qualitative thing?
So I don't think that right now there is a single universal model that you can use for all of your products' sustainability measurements because there's just too many factors at play. So just like with physical products where sometimes you'd have a very long supply chain and it's really hard to trace what is coming from where and how to measure the sustainability of each of these steps. Just like that, in digital products, there is also too many factors involved. And it's really, really hard to understand which ones are making the biggest impact or, which ones are not making an impact at all. So I don't think there is a standard model. However, I think that there are different smaller solutions or tools that could allow you to measure some parts of sustainability of your product. And I think it's more qualitative at the moment. So there's no single model that will give you a score of, okay, your product is sustainable 1 out of 5 or like 5 out of 5. This is probably not really realistic. So it's more qualitative, making your own conclusions based on the different factors at play, doing your own research and thinking a bit broadly about the business model that you have with your product might definitely help you understand if you're on the right track. And also, if you think that it's completely unsustainable, you work for a fast fashion company, you know that the business model is unsustainable at the core and it's not going to change for the better anytime soon. Well, there is still something you can do, like, the small wins that we discussed before, even like design or choosing which features to work on, choosing how to implement them. Every small decision at scale would make a difference afterwards.
Yeah, there's kind of almost like a marginal gains thing going on where you say, okay, well, yeah, at least it's not as bad as it could have been. Although I guess that's not necessarily the the most kind of inspiring message. I guess ultimately, if you work for a company like that, then maybe your values don't extend to sustainability. Arguably they should, but they probably don't. And I guess that's just a choice you have to make, like if you want to work for a company like that or if you don't. But I guess there's an interesting moral conundrum there, because on the one hand, you can sit there and say, well, you can sit there and, well, I don't believe in, like you say, fast fashion. I believe in sustainable supply chains and merchandising, etc. Therefore, I would not work for a company like that. Someone else can go and work for a company like that. On the other hand, you sit there and say, well, that person's not going to try at all. At least if I go there, I can try and make things a little bit better. But I guess, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation like that yourself, where you have an almost kind of betray your own morals in the vain hope, or possibly vain hope, of trying to fix something a little bit. Or if you think it's better to maybe try and do what you've done and go and work for a company that actually kind of lives and breathes this stuff.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I can't say I have an advice for everyone. Like, it's a personal decision. But yeah, for me, I definitely wanted to go work for a company that has a sustainable product at the core and was created to make the world a better place. Just because I worked in fintech before that, and when I was thinking about the when I was thinking about the long term. Yeah. When I was thinking about the long-term kind of effects of that industry overall, I didn't find it very inspiring for myself. So I switched. But yeah, well, it's interesting because maybe it's a bit like politics as well. So, you might be a very young, inspired activist who wants to go and change the system. And then you go there, you try and change the system, and then you realize the system is broken. So, yeah, sorry, this sounds really pessimistic, but yeah, I think going into a company that is not sustainable at the core and trying to change something is definitely a way for the brave people to go about their career. And it's also a bit like trying to maybe fix a company with toxic culture or some other like negative aspects of it. It definitely isn't an easy process, but if you succeed, well, you've done a great thing, and just choose it for yourself, or don't choose it.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess you've got to just choose what kind of battles you want to face, and what success looks like for you, and how much you can kind of hold your nose in the meantime.
Yeah.
But whilst people are holding their nose, if they want to come and find you after this and have a chat to you about sustainability, or just generally catch up, where can they come and find you?
Yeah, sure. It's just LinkedIn. Just find me by my name. It's quite a unique name in the UK, especially. So I think you'll have no trouble finding me.
Well, I'll have even less trouble when I sustainably put it into the show notes so they can come and click it and not have to do too many Google searches or all of that stuff.
Amazing.
I'll definitely do that and have a bit of a think about sustainable practices for myself. But as for now, all I can do is thank you for your hot take.
Thank you.